Hi there, it's Chris Wheatley here from Hot Tub University, and today we're going to talk about shell construction on hot tubs. When you're out shopping for a hot tub, you're going to hear a lot of different conflicting information on what makes a good hot tub shell. So we're just going to take a second here. We're going to look at the various ways guys are doing shells, and we're going to look at the pros and cons and what really is going to make a difference in a good shell construction for you. So the first thing we got to take in mind is there are two basic kind of shells. We've got your fiberglass acrylic shell, and those are the ones with the nice shiny surfaces or the textured finishes, and they're fiberglass reinforced on the back. And then we've got your rotationally molded. Those are typically your more cheaper entry-level hot tubs that would plug into a wall. Today we're really not going to talk about roto modes, we're going to talk about acrylic shells, just like the shell you're seeing here on this hot tub. There's two ways to do this, and the first part of it is going to be common between all manufacturers. So everybody's going to start with a sheet of acrylic. They're going to vacuum form it into the shape of the hot tub. They're going to flip it over, and then they're going to start to reinforce it. And this is where it starts to change a little bit. Most of your guys nowadays are going to use a product called vinyl ester resin or a similar type vinyl product that they'll apply to the back of the acrylic. And what this will do is act as a vapor barrier and a moisture barrier between your fiberglass layer, or in some cases they'll use other products in fiberglass, but most commonly it's going to be fiberglass. And it prevents osmosis, so it prevents minerals and salts from transversing through the layers and causing delamination or blistering of the surface. So they're going to use usually a vinyl ester resin on there, and then they're going to spray chopped fiberglass on it. And here's where it changes, folks, because when we look at the cheap end of the market, and again, this is typically going to be your Costco, Home Depot, Mass Merchant, Walmart kind of hot tubs. What these guys are going to do is they're just going to blow a couple of chops of fiberglass on the back of the shell, and that's going to be it. Now, the shell's not going to be strong enough to actually hold its own weight. So what they're then going to do is they're going to do what's called a cradle support. When they're building the frame for the hot tub, typically out of wood or metal, they're going to put posts coming up under the seats with cross members that are going to try and take that weight so that shell doesn't fall apart and break when we fill it with water. You can pitch this as a great thing because you can say to the customer, hey, look at this, we go so far that we actually reinforce everything, with all these supports underneath to make sure. Where the reality is, this is really just a cheaper way of making a shell, because if they were to apply enough glass onto that and to hand roll that glass to make sure we have no air pockets, we're then going to come out with what's called a self-supporting hull. Very few companies are building self-supporting hulls because it's labor intensive. It takes a lot of fiberglass and resin to make it happen. But what happens with a self-supporting hull is when that shell is done to the production, it can be put on the floor and filled up with water and can hold its own weight. The advantages between the two, wherever I put a prop underneath of a seat, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cause a pressure point. That's where a lot of weight's going to be focused right on that area where I have that prop or that support. So when I've got a cradle supported shell, the problem is I've got all these stress points all over the place that are eventually going to fail, or definitely have a higher possibility of failing, because as the water's in there and the pressure, we're always going to get these pressure points building up where all of those props and supports are. Whereas if I have a hand-rolled fiberglass self-supporting hull, that hull is going to disperse the pressure all the way across the surfaces. I'm not going to have pressure points, and that shell is going to last a lot longer. Okay, so the only other thing to keep in mind about a shell construction is if a guy is doing a hand-rolled fiberglass shell, don't buy into the pitch that it can just be dropped on the grass. Guys, hand-rolled self-supporting hulls can just be put on the grass and they won't hurt the hot tub. The reason we do ground prep work and the reason we prepare a surface under a hot tub isn't so it doesn't damage the hot tub, it's so that the ground settles levelly. So if you don't prep that ground, the tub's going to settle at a level. So make sure no matter what shell you're buying, don't buy into that sales pitch of being able to throw it on your grass and not do proper ground prep. Always do a patio stow and base under your hot tub, and then you're going to be in a lot better shape. That's basically it about shells. There's a little bit more information here and there, and again, a lot of it's spin and marketing, a lot of it's not things that are really going to make a difference to you, but that's shells in a nutshell.